Hello, everybody. It's Hadrian Plus here,
Yes, and Bridget. Hello.
and this is number 219 in Sounding the Shallows.
That's an incredible number,
I
Adrian.
know. So, what I want to ask you first, Bridget, is how did you do in your O levels?
Oh, O levels. Yeah, that does date me.
No, it-
all
we-
right.
we know
I
our O
I
levels,
did
didn't we?
all right in my O levels, but I do remember. And I mean, I know why you're asking this, because today is a very significant day in the UK. Well, in England, I'm not. I think in Scotland they may have already had these results, and it's a slightly different system anyway. But certainly in England and Wales, this is the day when you get your GCSE results.
They've added a lot of letters since our day, haven't they?
Well, I suppose they have, because the aim is to cater for absolutely everybody within one system, whereas it used to be two different, completely different
Or you
strands.
could do CSEs,
Well, that's what I mean. There are
and
two
then if
different
you got a
strands.
grade 1 CSE,
Yeah.
it was called an O level. wasn't it?
Yes, it was, and I taught in what was then called a secondary modern school, and yeah, I mean, it was tricky because I felt that some of the children that worked really hard and actually were very talented but just didn't happen to have managed to show it at aged 11 really deserve more than just it being the equal of a pass at GCSE, which I think is one of the reasons why they've tried to create something for everyone. But I mean, today is that day when they open their results.
I watched some on the television, and it's interesting. They had the A levels recently. They showed on television young people opening their letters, and this time it was the O levels. But they said GCSEs. Sorry, everybody, we're dinosaurs. They always say, the presenter or the reporter always says, this is the day on which teenagers open their GCSE results. Some are not very happy and some are very happy. They never show the unhappy ones because I suppose they wouldn't want to be seen.
No,
I
that
don't
would
know.
be too mean, really,
So
wouldn't it?
on
Yeah.
the whole, you see people opening them and there being a kind of sigh of relief as you find you either haven't done too bad or you've done very well.
One thing I thought was interesting that I heard in the radio this morning was them saying that even now, even though they're saying that the results have now been sort of modified to the point that they're very similar to how they were pre-COVID, they're saying that even now, this is the last year, really, where children who were affected by COVID are being asked to come up trumps at this stage, because they were, well, what we would say in this country, they were year 7. That means that they were 11. They just, first year of secondary school. And that's when lockdown happened. And for some children, because we know that there's a huge amount of absenteeism, they never did really recover from that great lurch in the wrong direction that affected them so much. So they're saying, we still should be really proud of these kids and the teachers for having battled through this strange period, but that some children have missed out, and some children are still missing out. They're not at school. They've lost any sense of moving forward, and it's still affecting them.
And we were looking back at our own experience of that, and but first of all, looking at the time when the lockdowns first happened, and we said one night, or I think it was our daughters said,
it was all her fault.
why don't you do a recording for other people to listen to? And we thought, well, we could just do it for a little while and see, and probably no one
we thought
will
COVID
listen.
would be over in a couple of months.
That's right, yeah. And we we started doing one every day, which is, when you look back, that's a mad decision.
We did 63 of those.
63 of them we did, and it meant that every night you went to bed thinking, what are we doing tomorrow?
No.
And every morning you woke up thinking, what are we doing today? But it
part
wasn't
of the rhythm of
too
life
bad,
for us, yeah.
especially in COVID, because we had something that we were focusing on, and some people who were still listening then and are still bravely listening now will remember that we We actually completed a jigsaw through that period. Who was the artist?
It was Monet.
Monet, yeah. That's
well, it
right,
was a very difficult jigsaw. It did take us. We also acquired our dog during that time, and she's sitting in her little bed
in front of us
on the table. We've discovered that she just wants to be involved, and so having her right next to us when we're sitting here means that she's completely relaxed.
Very peaceful, aren't you, Gracie? Gracie's looking very serene. And then, after we'd done the 63 daily ones, we thought, shall we carry on? And we thought, what we might do is carry on put things out on a Friday for a while. And on the face of it, I can remember us saying, and actually that'll be easier because we'll have a whole week in which to think about what the next one will be about and what we're going to do. In fact, it's a real tease because when you finish one, you think, oh, well, we've got 6 days now before we do another one. And you think, but then you don't. What you don't do is use your 6 days.
Well, I think anybody, Adrian, who has a task to finish, whether it's an essay to write or whether it's something far more advanced than that, will know completely, even if it's sort of, I don't know, doing some decorating or whatever it is, if you think you've got a whole week, that somehow you end up doing it at the end.
But it is, it has been... I don't know how a punctuation mark in our lives, a thing we do, and actually has brought us great, not just pleasure.
We've had so many interesting responses from people, and that just keep challenging us. And just recently, and we're going to look at some of these emails next week, aren't we? But there's been some really interesting take on the thing we've been sort of exploring about how difficult it is to stay in the middle, if you like, to live in the uncertainty. And we've said it before, but there's no doubt COVID and the whole lockdown and then the whole fact of getting back into life afterwards doesn't just affect kids in secondary school, it's affected everybody, possibly in the whole world. It's shaken everything around and about. And it means that we are living with a level of uncertainty that maybe we didn't realise we were before. I can't believe the world is that much more uncertain than it was before.
Yeah, it seems so. We just listened to the news. That's Gracie shaking us up on the
She's
table.
Walking all over the table now.
We just watched the news, and it was a liturgy, if that's the right word, of really unpleasant, horrible things. A great list of them. And I know there's always been bad news. Has always been the news that
hits the top.
Bits the top, yeah.
But I mean, one of the pieces of news, and I'm sure this is something that people have heard all over the world, really, and it comes back to almost the same thing. You can think you're safe, you can think you're certain, but I mean, this luxury yacht that's just sunk to the bottom of the ocean because of an incredible storm, well, they don't know all the reasons for it, but killing people who were sure that they were completely safe it was a bit Titanic-ish, really, but in a big and beautiful thing with all the luxury fittings and everything. And it just somehow clunks into that feeling that nobody's really safe, that you can think you are, you can think you can buy it almost.
There is, in a way, it all points to the fact that the desperate attempts by human beings to make life a safe, controllable, a thoroughly optimistic thing, it could be something that could lead you into, I don't even know what to say, but lead you into a fake certainty that actually doesn't do you any good in the end. And I know within Sorry, no, what were you saying?
Well, just that one or two of the emails we'll just concentrate on next week are exploring just that, aren't they? Yeah. That there is I don't know, there's a sort of feeling it would be quite nice to go back to the time when they were 100% sure about absolutely everything to do with their faith. And now they're on no, it's not a rickety path, but it's a stony path. It's a complicated route.
I think that there's been a lot of conversation in emails and with people about about the issue of certainty, but the issue of, because faith is not certainty. Faith is a belief and a hope, according to the teaching about faith that we know of. That you will arrive at a place where things are resolved, and I mean, without going all the technical theological stuff. If that's taken too lightly, I don't think it means a great deal. But I think for those who have come to a place where it's crucially important to them, and I would include myself in that, and yet there are almost temptations to retreat from the granular nature of life and faith into a place where you're going to be certain. I
well,
find
it's not
it
surprising,
so many times.
is it?
No, it isn't. People, so many times, I have conversations with people who I think assume that I have a deep and immovable faith about everything. When you write things, that tends to happen. People tend to think you. I do have some very strong feelings and thoughts and relationships actually in that area. But every time I'm tempted to go off into a safe place, I feel unsafe with this. I think that's
I think that's what some of these people writing to us are saying at the moment as well, Adrian, that there is a temptation, and yet as soon as you really feel you're going to jump, sort of from one stepping stone onto that one that looks fine and solid, that this part of you knows that actually it isn't. It may look it. It may look very attractive, but that we know from our lives that is not the case.
There are plenty of human bolt holes. I suppose that's what it is.
We're going from stepping stones to bolt holes to narrow paths. I
love mixing metaphors. But you may remember years and years ago we met somebody who had lost a child, and which is a terrible, terrible, sad thing to happen. And she was obviously keen to tell us why that was all right, because she didn't want to lose her faith, but she couldn't, for the life of her, obviously think why such a thing could happen if there's the old thing, God is all powerful and all loving. Anyway, so she said, but I've realised now the truth. She said, because I've had to. I think she said I had to.
Father, I think it was.
Look after, or a close relative. I can't quite remember, but and obviously God thought if you've got a baby, you won't be able to do that.
Now, gosh, that makes me feel ill, Adrian.
But that moving into a little tiny safe place where you've got a logic that kind of works, as though God has a calendar on the wall and is saying, look, if we get rid of the baby here on the Wednesday,
don't, Adrian,
but that's why. If you get drawn into false safety...
in fairness to that situation, sometimes we do have to, whether it's taking medication in order that we can handle things, or whether for this particular person it was finding something that could just take away the worst of the pain. We don't actually know whether that person continued to think like that.
I don't blame her in the slightest. She found something that
made it possible for her to sleep at night.
To survive. And I understand that completely. But I on a less dramatic, because that was pretty extreme, but in a less dramatic way, we've often talked about there being a darkness at the end of the tunnel.
Instead of light at the end of the tunnel? There's
always darkness at the end of the light. There isn't always, but that if you go from the light that which you've just about kept going with, and you have enough people around you to make you feel it's okay, and then you discover there is a tunnel which is dark, which offers, and it's at the end of your light, and you know somehow you should go through that tunnel to discover
or
what's
you
at the
don't
other
have a
end.
choice.
Or you don't have any choice. And then you can find yourself in a light that is lighter and brighter and more useful to you in a real way than the light that you knew before. But the reason, as people always have, and I'm sure we have, you crowd together. I remember in Three Men in a Boat. I loved Three Men in a Boat. I always did. Jerome K. Jerome.
I know.
About when at one point he says, let's all get together and hold hands and stand round a fire and dance and pretend everything's all right.
Yeah.
And that's the problem with the kind of certainty. Let's light a fire. Let's warm our hands. Let's sing. Let's pretend it's okay. And not there's anything wrong with doing any of that, but that isn't.
No.
That isn't. That isn't an answer to the deepest questions we ask.
Well, yes. I mean, like I say, I think sometimes you have to do that, and just be close and feel okay in the middle of really hard things. I don't, it's just that if you want to keep in that place, then you're going to start manipulating life in order to make it fit, which is what you said before.
Yeah. Someone will write a book about holding hands and building fires and...
Well, you've probably... No, you haven't. No, but I'll tell you something else that made me just think... We've been talking, and this sounds such a big leap, I'm sorry. It's just that it came up, didn't it? About, you said, well, what about the brazen serpent? And you said about... And we were looking at... what Jesus says, that he says he will be. Well, I'll do my best. If I can remember it very, very quickly. This is Moses, and he had this brass serpent on a stick, on a pole, and the Israelites had yet again messed up big time, and they'd ended up being bitten quite badly, and I hope I'm getting this right. I wish I hadn't asked me that question.
Glad you find other people's misery so entertaining.
No, I don't. I just wish I could remember it clearly. And as I remember it, Moses held up this serpent on the pole. God told him to do it, and they were told, if you look up and you keep your eyes on the serpent, then you will be healed.
That's right, yeah.
And the thing about Jesus being lifted up, it actually says it in John, doesn't it? It says he's lifted up like that serpent, and you have to look at him on the cross. And that's where it goes so wrong for so many of us, that we miss out the cross. That when we actually look at that couldn't be tougher than our lives could almost ever be.
Well, to look up and see suffering and to say that can, in some incredible way, be the end you're looking for.
Yes.
I was thinking today that, my path, the way I'm going at the moment, it's not an easy path. I don't find it comfortable. And there are always temptations to another path on the right or the left. One perhaps that I used to do, that I used to find gave me more easy satisfaction, and another one that perhaps is a distraction from the path I'm on. But I don't want to leave my path.
No.
There is a truth and a solidity in tracking this path. I mean, Jesus said the way to whatever it is a narrow path, and it is.
Yes.
It is a narrow path.
Yeah.
And you can't. I suppose it might be something to do with what we've often said about joy and happiness, that if you're looking for happy, you're not going to find it in a continuous satisfying way, in the sense that you will be happy. And joy, certainly in the Christian sense anyway, isn't about happiness, is it?
Well, you said in one of your poems, your really early poem, When I Became a Christian, you say you need the joy to bear the pain and sorrow. And I don't know whether would you still say that? I mean, you wrote that. I mean, we talk about the passage of time since COVID, but I mean, this is very early on when you were writing, when you wrote When I Became a Christian.
I think it's exactly the same.
Yeah.
I think whatever other people call it or mean by it, I mean, joy for me is a confused but heartfelt attachment to a relationship. That's where I am. And the path is not easy, and I can't recall anyone who was ever in that relationship finding it easy.
No.
It wasn't meant to be. It's a path that is valuable to take, because it will help others and help you if you can make your way through.
It is a pilgrimage. I mean, it is, and it's every now and then it's the very best thing. So you said about the fire and the being together around the fire, and we were laughing about it, but there are moments when it feels like that. It feels the very best thing, but you can't sustain that feeling the whole time. I mean, anybody who's alive knows that. Well, maybe you can't more than most, but I don't think any of us can. And if you try, then that's where the lies begin.
I think I had a fun bypass at some point in my life without realizing.
Anyway, we'd love to hear what your feelings are about this. I mean, I know we are exploring that in-betweenness, what it is to try to walk without just wandering off into somewhere where you just feel cozy and comfy, and there isn't a challenge. But we will look at some of those emails, but we'd love to hear from you.
As always.
What you think. Yeah. And we'll speak to you next week.
Bye-bye.